You had, I think, relationships as the number one topic when we spoke about what are you passionate about talking about today. Would you mind expanding on the relationship side of things? Because I was just prior to this podcast, I had another recording also earlier this morning, and it's just this one common theme that when you speak to people that are successful in industry and that have grown their careers or grown their businesses, been successful in the entrepreneurial space, relationship is such a key success factor. Would you mind just telling us why was this a topic for you to talk
Well,
about?
Chris, I think, and I don't want to state the obvious, but people work with people that don't work with companies, and people buy from people that don't buy from companies. I think even the clients that we work with today and the clients that I've worked with for many years, I call many of them friends. It's people that I enjoy working with, I enjoy spending time with. When I interview someone or when we interview someone, you always obviously try and go through a rigorous process. But this sort of the game changer for me is this the person that I actually want to spend time with? Because clients will have the same view. Is this someone that I enjoy talking to, that I find interesting, that I want to spend time with, that I can trust, that I find authentic? And I think that's important. Authenticity and just enjoying who you work with on a daily basis. So that's where relationships come in, and the partners that I work with in our business, or people that I've spent many years with, I would go in the trenches. I would go to war with. It's people that I trust implicitly, and that I really enjoy spending time with. So relationships for me is fundamental in what we do. Otherwise, you wouldn't enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, you are not stating the obvious, and sometimes it's the simple things in life that are just so important because it's foundational. And the anything else on the relationships you want to talk about that is have relationships gone wrong?
Of course. I think um, it's when you have good relationships with people, it's sometimes difficult to have the tough conversations that you need to have. And one of the things that I learned early in my career, and I'm not saying that I'm good at it, but if if relationships go south or something goes wrong, walk to the fire and have the difficult conversation immediately. And it's challenging, especially when you have developed a very strong relationship over a long period of time. And I've had to have many tough conversations in the last 3 years. I think the other thing that's also quite challenging is if you work for a big corporate, people sometimes get lost in the shadows. And if you have a small business that you want to grow, that you're personally invested in, you don't have that luxury.
Yes.
And there's no such thing as a complete bulletproof recruitment process. So sometimes you do make mistakes. And
Yeah.
then in those instances, you also need to do the right thing for that individual and for the business. So those things are tough. It's not easy. Someone that's passionate about relationships and working with people, I think that it's difficult to go through those processes, and emotionally quite draining.
Do you have a recipe of dealing with that sort of tough conversation?
It's quite challenging, but I think the main thing is just to be honest with people. People appreciate that, even if it's difficult, a difficult conversation to have. I think over time, when people reflect on that, they appreciate the honesty.
Mm.
Even if it's not a nice message, rather be honest. I think you do people a massive disservice if you're not honest with them.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what I try and do, even if it's difficult.
I like that. Just very simple. Just be honest. And funny enough, it's not coincidental. I don't believe it in coincidence. But this morning, the conversation was also about just that honesty. About
Mm,
we are in a people business. We can talk about the future. There are dreams that we think about, or how do we bring that future into the present is just a people game at the end of the day. Technical people being as they are, how important is people skills for technical people? You've mentioned the rock engineers, the ventilation engineers, the geologists, the whatever, in the technical services. the surveyor. That's all very technical. They are all specialists in their different fields. But is it important to have people skills?
Christo, for me, it's about balance. We talk about technical services department. So just in the word technical, it means that there's some technical stuff there. So there's knowledge and that kind of things. But I've seen in some cases where specifically some of the technical people are not they're not communicators. Give them numbers and they in their element, so they're happy to do that. But I've seen it that you have to be able to have both. You need to have communication skills and be able to take the technical information and turn it into valuable information that you can use. But the critical thing for me, it's around that balance of having the communication side of things and empathy and caring and all of those other things that's with technical services. For me, it's around that balance that although you may be the head of the department, but there's still that empathy and caring relationship, and that whole servant leadership that needs to come through. That, listen, I'm here to assist you and to help you and be able to take you onto a journey that you will be able to enrich yourself.
And you've had many successes with developing peoples. Any failures where that relationship didn't work, and what were the reasons for those failures?
Yes, Christo. I think the big thing for me around its failures is what do you learn from that? Every failure is an opportunity to learn, and for me it was out of that. So I think one of the biggest failures that I had was going a bit back in my career, and that was when the Anglo-American had this graduate program where we had to bring graduates in and train them, and there was no program really for them, and we see how some of those youngsters are failing because the program didn't help them. So for me, it was around a failure to convince executives that we need to put a program in place.
Yeah.
And for me that was one of the sad ones. And it came back to me and when I actually arrived at Lonman, I had this opportunity to put the program in place, and with the executives got the support, and we put this technical services or cadet program in place for the community. So for me, that was the highlight of my career, and actually the closure of what I'm standing for is to develop others, and that was just an amazing program.
I can distinctly recall the radiance from your whole body when you were in front of those cadets and you were talking to them. How important is that for your business, working in a team?
Yeah, I think very important, Christo. And once again, because mining is so complex, I mean, I went to a new kind of greenfields business in the DRC a while ago, and the scale of it is so enormous, and you kind of become insensitive to it. And when you look at everything around you and you think, well, how is it possible for people to make this work? And because there's so many different disciplines, and when I refer to disciplines, I mean accounting, mining, and all those kind of things, processing, and so forth. You have to come together and you have to work as a team. And I think that is critical. And the diversity comes from that. Even if it's in a certain department, the different mindsets, the different opinions, the different backgrounds, all of it contributes. I think in our business, because we're still relatively small, we're about 50 people in the business. Every person that joins the business changes the business, because there's a unique element that person brings in that wasn't there when that person before that person joined.
Wow.
And I think that's for me why I love consulting as well, and why I love working in teams, because every person brings something unique to the table. And it's he says, all the kind of MBA stuff that's important, all the once again, I've got to say soft and fluffy stuff, but it's important.
Yeah.
And I think diversity is part of it. And I think it's respecting others' opinions. It's about listening to others, but I think also giving people the responsibility and the opportunity to take lead of things, and to kind of step away and say, well, whether I'm the project lead or not, I'm going to make something someone's problem, because that's how someone will learn from it. That's how someone will contribute in his or her own view. But to do that, you have to allow people to make mistakes. And through those mistakes, they'll learn. And I've generally, people don't like making mistakes. So if you give them the opportunity to make the mistake, they'll by themselves take the opportunity to do their best to fix it. So I think diversity and teamwork for me is kind of integrated. It's almost the same thing. Yeah.
Do you need some one-on-one coaching? Do you know that theminingcoach.com offer these services as part of Kumena Consulting? Kumena means grow, and most top athletes and sport teams all have coaches to grow and become better. Why don't you reach out to us by sending us an email, and you will qualify for getting your first coaching session absolutely free. Contact us at christo@theminingcoach.com. Terms and conditions apply. I don't know you that well, but when I did my research about you and speaking to people that have worked with you, some of the comments were, Jan-Adriaan is a guy of excellence and is one of the smartest minds I've ever worked with. But excellence is something that's very close to your heart. And why is that?
Christo, the one thing that I learned very early in my career is that no one cares more about your career than yourself. And the faster you realize that, the better. I think people underestimate the impact that small things has on your personal brand. Every mail that you send, every document that you send for review, every interaction that you have, meeting that you facilitate, you represent your personal brand. All of us work for organizations or for ourselves. And I think people sometimes forget that you actually, in most instances, represent yourself. So taking ownership of that is quite important. And sometimes what I've realized a lot is people don't actually have that worldview. There's always someone else that will fix this spelling mistake, or get these boxes aligned for me, or fix the grammar, or what. And you shouldn't be thinking like that. Every single time you send something or communicate or interact with someone, you present your brand. And I think that's important to always remember. Excellence and absolute quality. Not that I don't make mistakes, I make many mistakes, but just being conscious of that is quite important.
I love that. Yeah. And I've heard that before, but I don't think I've heard it in this context. Every single time you send the mail, every single time you do that one slide on that presentation and the boxes are not aligned, or whatever that may be, that's your personal brand. That's you talking. Wow. Anything else on that one? There must be more than that. I mean, have you seen this go badly, where, the lack of excellence has caused problems?
Yeah, many times. One of the values that we try and instill in our business is, or two of the values that sort of go hand in hand, is absolute quality and accountability. And the last thing we want to do is grow and build an organization with all these different layers where people review, and there's another layer of review, and no one really actually ever takes accountability for what they deliver. with that, obviously the flip side of that is there's risk in that, right? So if you tell people you take absolute accountability, you need to live that every day. You can't then continuously look over people's shoulders, fix their mistakes, and otherwise they will never take accountability. And that's sort of the balancing act for us. I think something that I personally struggle with a lot. And sometimes you need to allow people to make mistakes. That's the only way they learn. So it's still something that I struggle with. I still struggle with the hands-off approach at times. I do get involved and probably too involved at times, to make sure that what we send to a client or what we communicate is up to sort of my view of what quality is, and it's difficult.
It is one of the toughest things that I've also experienced is being hands off and allowing people to make those mistakes, standing back. So we never see a failure as necessarily a setback, but it's an opportunity to grow and learn. Any big failures or lessons learned that you're willing to share and be vulnerable about this morning?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I failed much more than what I've succeeded, Christy. And I think it started in varsity. You can ask my wife or all my varsity friends. I failed more than I passed. But I think perseverance was absolutely critical. I mean, studying for something and failing, and studying harder and failing again, and then studying harder and differently and failing again, and you fail and fail and fail until you don't. And I think that perseverance and the willingness to go the extra mile kind of changes those failures into success. But I mean, from a consulting perspective, and business in general, you can have your own plans, but the world is out of your control, and it's so fast moving and it's so volatile. It's sometimes difficult to know whether something that you want to do, whether it's going to work or not. I mean, it makes sense on paper, it makes sense financially, but it's the wrong timing. The opportunities aren't there. And sometimes a great idea doesn't progress just because of timing in the market, or the opportunities aren't necessarily there. And I suppose you shouldn't just leave it. I mean, you need to be hard on it and just drop it if it doesn't work. I mean, in the early Fraser McGill days, we were very open to do many different things. And I was quite critical, especially about myself, to say, well, to what extent does this contribute to the business? To what extent does it contribute to our growth, to our clients, to our people, to the bottom line? And if something didn't work, whether it was 99% done or whether we just started, I would drop it. It doesn't matter how passionate I was about it. And I think that helped a lot. Not getting, I don't know, almost emotional or too stuck in things you think you want to do. And that opportunity may come back. It's still a good idea, but when the opportunity comes, you can go back to it. So many failures there, but ultimately they lead to betterment or improvement of everything around you. But I think if I have to think about failures in the business, or for myself personally, I think the biggest area where I feel I fail is where someone leaves the business or leaves the team. And luckily that not a lot of that has happened. But for me, it feels like
you failed him.
I couldn't give the person what that person needed in what his or her career plan was. So for me, that's a failure. But I mean, we'll get them back in the future. The mining industry is small. We let them go and do their thing, and hopefully they'll come back. So
Jurgens, would you mind sharing some of the biggest lessons in your career?
Yes, I think.
I know there
for
are
me,
but
I think
that stand out.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson for me is when you are given an opportunity, you must grab it and make it your own. I just take my circumstances where I was offered a in-service bursary. If I said no at the time, I would be much poorer in knowledge that I am today.
Yeah.
And it's really around grab those opportunities and make it your own, and then also prepare to make sacrifices, but
Yeah.
not selling your soul. But I think in my personal circumstances, I had to make a sacrifice, and I paid a price for it. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. And looking back now, it is. I think I made the right decision at the time. So for me, just to sum up, grab the opportunity. Don't now if there's a sacrifice, weigh it up. Make sure it will suit your circumstances, and take that sacrifice. And sometimes, a sacrifice could be a salary cut. It could be, those kind of sacrifices that you have to make. Maybe move out of your comfort house where you stay, and you have to stay in a small little place because you're now a student. So those are the things that you need to take sacrifice. And then, for me, it's networking. This leads to increased opportunities and professional enrichment. Sure.
The Mining Coach is part of Camena Consulting. If your company is in need of technical study support, due diligence studies, business improvement projects, or business and senior leadership coaching, why don't you contact us directly by clicking on the show notes and following the links that will connect you to us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your mining. Cheers.